Where we're at? Well, we're in Florida. And remember the good cop I told you I think I found? I think Tony is the good cop. So let's see what's going on and we'll see what he has to say and we'll go from there. Sheriff put 7 deputies on leave, saying 3 killings stemmed from piss poor domestic violence. February 20th, 2025. And we're going to click over to reader mode so the ads will go away. A South Florida sheriff delivered a blistering rebuke of his own deputies this week, saying his department failed in its handling of a lengthy domestic violence case that he says culminated in a triple homicide. 7 deputies have been placed on leave with pay. Now, that's a whole union thing. That's the way that works. The Broward County Sheriff's Office told CNN as it investigates what Sheriff Gregory Tony described Wednesday as shortcomings, leading to last weekend's killings in which a man is accused of fatally shooting his estranged wife, her father, and a neighbor in the city of Tamarack. Tony decries deputies' piss-poor performance and bull work, telling reporters they failed to take appropriate action after domestic violence calls related to the couple last year, and that the wife in December repeatedly told a deputy that she was afraid her husband would kill her. Deputies could have potentially pursued an arrest of the man then, but didn't, he said. They don't have time for that. What they have time for is to sit in their cars paid for by the taxpayer and play on their phones all day and do absolutely the least amount that they have to do until they go and clock out. There will be people that will lose their jobs over this, Tony said in a Wednesday news conference, and I'm focusing on making sure they don't win a damn arbitration because that happens too repeatedly in this profession. Absolutely. You can't get rid of them. Tony might get rid of them. Tony's on my team. Tony gets rid of those little motherfuckers, and make sure that you burn that post certificate where they can never be in this profession again. He is absolutely right. There is no consequences for actions. Nathan Gingles, 43, is accused of fatally shooting his estranged wife, Mary Gingles, 34, her father, David Ponzer, 64, and her neighbor, Andrew Farron, 36, on Sunday morning at 2 homes in Tamarack near Fort Lauderdale, according to the sheriff's office. Nathan Gingles, also is accused of kidnapping his and Mary's 4-year-old daughter as he carried out the killings, authorities said. Following a statewide Amber Alert issued for the child, investigators found him and the girl late that morning outside a store in nearby North Lauderdale, and he was arrested, authorities said. Nathan Eagles was being held on a slew of charges, including 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of violating a domestic violence protection order, and a count of interference with lawful custody. He is being held without bond at Broward County Jail. Online records showed Thursday. His case has been provisionally appointed to the county's public defender's office, according to court records. CNN has sought comment from the public defender's office as well as from an attorney listed in court records as having represented in the case accusing him of domestic violence. The deaths are on my watch, Tony told reporters at the news conference, adding, "We could have done better, and we didn't." In a release to the Broward County Sheriff's Association, the union representing Broward deputies said it is still very early in the investigation regarding the tragic murders in Tamarack, and described the deputies' leave as a matter of internal protocol. Absolutely it is. And we're going to pay you to sit home and think about what you did. So you can sit home on a taxpayer dime, collect money on taxpayer dime, like, I don't know, 7 of them, while we figure out how to worm you out of this. We believe in due process, and we await the facts, which will be revealed by full investigation, Union Vice President Dan Rakowski said. Furthermore, we are confident that the Broward Sheriff's Office will be thorough and complete throughout the process. Well, Sheriff will. Tony, my man, he's going to get to the bottom of that. Court records indicate Nathan and Mary Gingles were involved in a divorce case dating from February 2024, in addition to 2 domestic violence cases, one of which concluded in July. Court records also indicate Mary Gingles had sought a restraining order against her estranged husband. These documents were marked confidential and were not fully accessible online Thursday. The Office of the County Clerk of Courts did not respond to a request about the documents after initially directing CNN to the online records, of course. And when they do, their comment to the comment will be no comment. According to his arrest warrant in Sunday's killings, deputies exploring one of the shooting scenes found a court order prohibiting Nathan Eagles from contacting 2 people, someone whose name is redacted and their daughter. More should have been done considering a history of reports relating to allegations of domestic violence involving the couple, the sheriff said. Dozens of calls for service involving the couple had been made over a span of a couple of years, said Tony, who characterized the calls as one conflict after another, whether the husband's reporting the wife, now she's reporting him, and so on. Deputies failed to take appropriate action, specifically after domestic violence calls in October and December, Tony said, though he provided few details about what prompted those calls and how deputies responded. From my assessment, this is really just a shortcoming of performance, Tony said about an October call, whether it be complacency, not taking a greater interest, and not doing their due diligence to make sure that they're documenting everything in an accurate manner so that when it does arrive at the investigators' hands, they have a comprehensive report that allows them to make better judgments and decisions. Tony pointed specifically to a December incident. In that situation, Tony said Mary Gingles reportedly expressed fears for her life to a responding deputy. The totality of times that she had made statements related to, I fear he's going to kill me, there was enough evidence that we could have potentially pursued a probable cause affidavit so we could arrest him and take him off the street, Tony said, and that didn't happen. The case was eventually escalated to the district detective, but critical time had already been lost due to a multitude of shortcomings, Tony said. We fell short on this one, Tony said. On Sunday, Broward County Sheriff's deputies went to a Taramac home just after 6 a.m., according to an arrest warrant from Nathan Gingles, after a 911 caller reported hearing the sound of gunfire and a woman crying and screaming, "Oh my God," from a nearby home. The caller then heard 2 more gunshots, the warrant says. Deputies found Ponzer, Mary Gingles' father, lying in the home's backyard with a gunshot wound, according to the warrant, and a news release from the sheriff's office. He was declared dead at the scene, the warrant says. Inside the home, deputies found gun lock boxes that appeared to be unlocked, as well as a restraining order with Nathan Gingles' name. The deputies searched the area. One noticed a man wearing all black clothing walking with a child. The information was broadcast over police radio, but deputies continued their search, not yet knowing what had unfolded, the warrant said. Seemed like they might stop and ask a couple questions. Or, I don't know, might have known him. Outside, a neighbor told deputies she was woken up around 6:07 a.m. to the sound of a loud banging on his front door, the warrant says. In surveillance footage captured outside his home, he saw a woman, his neighbor, running to the door and knocking on it frantically, followed seconds later by a person wearing all black with what appeared to be a firearm and a small child following behind. The woman then fled. Deputies found Mary Gingles dead inside her home, where they also located Farron, according to the news release. Investigators believe Mary Gingles fled into the home and was followed by Nathan Gingles. Authorities allege he shot his wife and the innocent and unsuspecting resident, according to a warrant. Well, you know what stopped him? If the neighbor that was there had a gun. I'm just saying everybody should be armed. A background search of Nathan Gingles led deputies to an apartment he was renting in nearby Lauderhill, where he had registered a vehicle with a Texas license plate. The warrant says the vehicle was later located in the parking lot of a Walmart, where Gingles was found with his daughter and taken into custody, according to the warrant. Detectives determined the 4-year-old girl witnessed the killings and saw her father dispose of his gun in the backyard. Dispose of his gun in a black backpack, which he threw into a trash can, the warrant says. The weapon and backpack have not been recovered, according to the warrant. The girl also said her father told her they were going to visit her cousin in Texas and that she would never see her mother or grandfather again, the document says. Nathan Gingles had previously surrendered firearms and ammunition as part of the term ordered by the restraining order, the warrant says, citing a February 2024 incident report. The weapons were later returned to him per the warrant. Of course they were. I asked why the seized firearms were returned. Tony said deputies were legally required to do so due to court proceedings. Part of the current investigation will focus on whether the guns should have been taken a second time, he said, following additional domestic violence calls to the police. I was under the impression he was under a domestic violence restraining order, which typically you have to surrender all firearms. Maybe that had expired. I don't know. He apologized to the victim's family, saying the preliminary findings about the authorities' failures only hurts them even more after their loss, because I'm basically saying we had a chance to save your loved one's life and we failed, the sheriff said. So, yeah, that's where we're at, Tony. Tony's on my team. Now, let's see what's going on with this.
That may have occurred in the investigative process from the patrol standpoint and within the Detective Bureau assigned out in Tamarack. And that's why we're here. We're here to give you some clarity. For many of you in the room, you've been with me in this room for the last 6 years, and if you think back to 2019, one of the things I told this community was that when I know, they will know, and that this agency will remain a transparent and accountable organization, not just when we're doing things great, but when we come up short. And I'm going to start with that. It is clear, based on the preliminary information I've been able to acquire so far from our investigators within the Office of Inspector General and Internal Affairs, we fell short on this one. We fell short in the response in terms of how some of the patrol personnel had documented certain facts related to calls going back to December. It's clear that some of the investigative practices conducted by detectives was also a shortfall. And so as we're continuing to gather more facts on this, I'm going to end up back in front of this camera. Make no mistake about it. Because I want to make sure this community continues to trust us and know that when we get this stuff wrong, people are going to be held accountable, and I'm going to step up and own every bit of it. So that's where we are at with this. Currently, there are 7 members, 7 total, that had some involvement with this investigation that are out on suspension right now and on administrative leave until we can come to a final course of action in terms of this investigation. 1 is a lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and 4 deputies. Again, that's 1 lieutenant, 2 sergeants, 4 deputies. If you need names and things of that nature, you can get that from Vita after the conference. This is as short as I can get, and I'll roll over, and I think it's probably going to be more appropriate to take a few questions if I can. Keep in mind, I cannot disclose or start talking about the homicide investigation, and there's minimum things that I can present in terms of the internal affairs. We'll start here.
Sheriff, we have been told that Mary Angel sought help from the Tamarack unit, and that little was offered. How do you respond to that?
I think that is an accurate assessment, and that we could have done more from what I've been able to analyze. I'll start with some of the first things that I've been able to witness and look at. From the original call for service that occurred back in October, because we're going way back, folks. We're not just looking at isolated incidents. We have a robust list of all the calls for services that occurred at that site location, either coming from the husband or coming from the wife or any other member that had any concern. What I witnessed in October, the first call that came out was related to a tracker. I saw some of your stories. You're accurate in that assessment. It's clear that we probably could have done more in that element, and that's what we're looking at in terms of what the deputies' responsibilities were at that time. These aren't shortcomings of policies, procedures, training, or equipment. From my assessment, this is really just a shortcoming of performance, whether it be complacency, not taking a greater interest, and not doing their due diligence to make sure that they're documenting everything in an accurate manner so that when it does arrive in the investigator's hand, they have a comprehensive report that will allow them to make better judgment and decisions. That's one start. The second aspect is the call in December that we had where a deputy went out to the scene and spent 35 minutes and 34 seconds, because I watched every bit of it on a body-worn camera, assessing and talking to the victim, talking to Mary, gathering information from her. And it was very robust in terms of the threat spectrum that exists, the totality of times that she had made related to, I fear that he's going to kill me, etc. And at that time, based on the evidence and things that were presented, there was enough there where we could have potentially pursued a probable cause affidavit so we can arrest him and take him off the street. And that didn't happen. We know that. The other elements that I'll be able to talk a little bit about is when this case finally made it to the assigned detective in the district. We're looking at that. There has been a multitude of shortcomings from my perspective that I know from being an investigator, having worked cases where things could have been done a lot better and they were not done. And so that's why I prompted and called for this internal affairs investigation, because on the surface, just seeing some of the things we found in the first couple hours, remember 24 hours, we were already looking into this. It was clear that, no, we're going to have to address this one. We're going to have to come to the public and let them know what the hell happened.
Sergeant Travis, right here. The patrol issue, Sergeant Travis Allen, who witnessed the suspect and the kidnapped child at that point, walking right past the patrol car, 4 houses from the scene of the crime, knowing shots had been fired, knowing people were calling all over.
I always wanted to know why I am the way I am. My curiosity led me to Ancestry. It was amazing to see all the traits that I've gotten from my mother in my DNA. It's a family thing. It's a family thing.
Is that not an active shooter situation when you know the shooting is occurring and you see a stranger, and he even says, it's unknown if it's related, I just find it kind of odd to walk around this time of the morning and she has no shoes on. Kind of odd, and he lets her go.
Well, I can tell you this. You mentioned Sergeant Allen, correct? He is also one that's currently suspended, and we're examining the totality of it. So for going back to the clarity, you asked one question that had two parts. The first part, no, it's not an active shooter incident. The way we classify active shooter incidents across this country under Department of Homeland Security protocols and the FBI, that would not qualify. The individual conducted a homicide, and then he stalked additional victims and killed them independently, but there wasn't an open air environment where he's actively shooting at random people that has no participating role in that particular criminal pattern that he took. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Here.
But what about his behavior? What about his performance there where the guy's walking by? Still a suspicious person.
The entire performance protocols is what we're looking at, and I don't want to jump ahead of this. Let me get to this real quick. There will be people that will lose their job over this. And I'm focused on making sure that they don't win a damn arbitration, because that happens too repeatedly in this profession where individuals out in other states, after I fire someone, determine that they want this person back in our county and in this community. I've dealt with that numerous times throughout my career here as a sheriff. And so I don't want to put out any information about the standing of this investigation, because when I have to make the final decision that members are going to be terminated, I don't want them back here.
Sheriff, is it safe to say that these 7 suspensions don't necessarily have to do with this specific incident that happened over this weekend, but as you mentioned, dating back all the way to October?
Roy, you bring thank you. That's a very good point, okay? I hate that we have to talk about the shortcomings, because our tactical team out there, our SWAT team, did a remarkable job on the hostage rescue and saving that young kid's life and making sure it didn't escalate to a potential active shooter in any other environment. But we can't highlight that when I know there's other shortcomings. And because of those other shortcomings, it forced me to go far back as we can from the first few calls of service that came in. And as we're analyzing every single one of those calls, going over a year ago, we're starting to see things that where we probably should have done better.
Sheriff, do you know where his gun's taken away? According to one of the documents, they were given to BSO. Do you know if the guns remained in BSO custody, or were his weapons ever returned?
Let me backtrack a little bit. Early on, there was a call for service in which we were able to come out there and seize all the weapons for an injunction violation. Then there was a second call for service that came out after the injunction was basically null and void because of the victim had elected to go in that path. And then those guns were returnable in the sense that he had the right to receive them. And then this rolls into how many more other calls for services did he receive since the second time since he received his weapons back, and whether or not there was enough evidence there for us to take him a second time and a third time or retain those weapons to keep him out of his hands.
The order said they should be turned in. The second injunction, sought December 30th and issued and served to him on January 8th, said the weapons must be turned over to the sheriff as well as the CWP.
Again, we did not collect any of those weapons that I have in front of me right now in terms of the second injunction. But this is within this investigation. I want to know, why didn't we do it? Who was the detective assigned? Did they file the proper paperwork with the courts? These are all the processes that we're looking at. And like I said, if we have to do a round 2 or 3 of this, we most certainly are going to do it and tell the community what they need to hear. Where are we at? Let me go here, here, and then there.
2 parts. We received one document also where there was just sort of as an aside, it said, father appeared to know the officers. Is that part of your investigation? And then past that?
I can tell you what I've witnessed so far. This isn't a matter of a relationship element or someone, a deputy, showing favor. This is just a matter of what I've seen of piss poor performance, complacency, and people not doing their due diligence to ensure that all the checks and balances that we put in place in this agency over the last 6 years, we have stopped several active shooter incidents. We've investigated over 5,000 cases. We divert over 2,500 individuals towards mental health care. We created a threat management division that works 24/7, 365. So there's enough resources in this agency to support every single law enforcement officer across this entire county beyond BSO, because we have supported and investigated hundreds of cases in Fort Lauderdale, and Coconut Creek, and Margate. And so it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating for me to have to stand here and witness this and know that we're an organization who has had our trials, from one active shooter event to the airport to Stoneman Douglas to one tragedy after the next. And this administration, we put forth everything necessary to be successful. And it's inexcusable that individuals fail to perform their job. And it's not an excuse within anything from administration to policies to protocols to training. It's just bullshit work by other officers.
Sheriff, what more could she have done, and what would you say to other women who are in fear and wonder if she couldn't get the help she needed, what can I do?
Look, I don't want the public to lose faith that we can't do this when we're handling thousands and thousands of calls per service. We were over 700,000 calls per services every year just in our law enforcement division. That is an indicator that we're going to be successful handling our cases. So to the public, to the community, to those mothers and women out there who think that we're going to drop the ball and this is a consistent pattern, know this. When we rectify this situation, I'm going to send the fear of God amongst this entire agency to make damn sure we don't do this again. Because this death is on my watch. It's on my watch. I'm the sheriff of this county. I'm responsible. 2 times this community voted me in this office because of the way I perform, because I hold people accountable. I've terminated over 75 employees since I've been here, investigated the whole agency under the PPP scandal. I'm not shy away from holding us accountable. I'm not shy about taking an aggressive tone when we fail. There's 2 million people in this county that are counting on us every day to do our job. I fight for the funding, I fight for the equipment, and they have to fight for this community and perform, or they're not going to survive here. Terrell.
So, just for the record, how many administrative leaves for these deputies were tied to this past weekend, for one? And then 2, was there a delay in finding any of the victims on the morning that this happened? And then 3, any of the shortcomings tied to this Amber Alert, could this Amber Alert have been avoided if these shortcomings?
No, I'll start and work backwards. So the Amber Alert, I didn't see any issues there. If something comes up over the next couple of days as our investigators are analyzing this more, we'll come back and talk about it. But on the surface, that was not an issue. As far as the shortcoming, all 7, this is related to the most recent call for service going back from October, December 29th, and of course our response going out there on the tragic day. You had one other in the middle and I lost it. What was your second one?
Was there a delay in finding any of the victims on the morning that this happened?
I think there was somewhat of a delay in terms of finding them, but the discovery aspect, if you look at it, she was fearful, she was running for her life, she's going from one spot location to the next, so that takes time to be able to discover exactly where is the incident location, where is the final resting place, unfortunately, for the victim. That, I'm not going to micromanage that, right? There's some things that just take time, that's just the nature of doing business. But what I won't shy away from is the shortcomings in terms of investigative practices at the officer level and the detective level. And by the way, this investigation will include every single administrator from the captain to district commander all the way down. No one is going to get a pass on this. And if anyone falls short, they will not survive this.
Sheriff, you gave a message to the community and to women. Do you have a message for the families?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a devastating time for them. And it's hard to stand here non-emotional, and forgive the profanity that I dropped momentarily. It's very difficult because I hold these people close to my heart when they die. I read every report. I look at every single tragedy. And I'm a human being like everyone else in this room. And when I know we could have done better and we didn't do better, and this wasn't a matter of not properly funded or all these other things that historically has just failed this community, this isn't it. This is just individuals not doing what they're supposed to do. So I'm regrettably sorry to bring that to this family because they're hearing this right now. And it doesn't bring any solace to them. It only hurts them even more. Because I'm basically saying we had a chance to save your loved one's life and we failed.
You talked about 2 specific calls of service incidents. Do you know about how many on average?
One more, you broke up a little bit.
You talked about 2 specific calls of incident situations. Do you know how many calls of incidents you guys have received from the home or the victim in totality?
No, but that'll be part of the overall investigation. I can tell you, looking at the notes and bullet points that came through, it looked like dozens of calls for services over a span of a couple years, where it's just been one conflict after the next, whether the husband's reporting the wife, now she's reporting him, and so on and so forth. But it is a robust amount of calls for service. Abnormal.
Could you please clarify how he had the guns, when the guns were taken, when they were given back, and were the guns that he used or the gun on Sunday morning?
I honestly couldn't answer all that because we're running 2 things here, right? There's a homicide investigation that have to get all the factual elements together related to weapons used, crime scene, all those different complexities. So I don't want to navigate into that realm. And then the second side of it is that you talked about was whether or not when we issued the guns back, there's a timeline that was assessed on, and it was in compliance with the courts, right? I know our general counsel was involved in that. There was, information going back and forth as to whether or not we can release the weapons, should we release them, and at the end of the day, we had the legal obligation to return those weapons back.
But what is policy to take them back after the second injunction?
There's a lot of varying things there, right? It's not a policy element in terms of when you take it back, because when we do our risk protection orders and we're following these things, the courts are also involved in that process, right? So the biggest thing I look at is, did we follow all the procedural elements to submit this one in a timely manner? Was the document in which we submitted comprehensive enough where a judge, whether it be a warrant or anything else, would analyze it and look at it and say, this is thorough enough, let's move forward? And I don't see that happening. I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to wait for my investigators to come forth and bring me enough information.
Sorry, was a risk protection order filed, or should it have been?
You're going through theoretical hypotheticals, right? I have to get the facts lined up first before I can make a decision and tell you with 1,000% certainty, yes, it should have. When my investigators come to me and they say, yep, Sheriff X, Y, and Z should have been done, it wasn't done, then I'll have a better answer for you. I'll take one more. I saw something over here maybe. Any names, information, stuff like that you need, Vito give you guys a printout for it. And like I said, if we have to come back, we'll come back. To the community, I just want to leave them with some level of assurance, just letting them know that we understand where our shortcomings were in this incident and that we're going to get them right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Anyway, this one I think is, he is pretty pissed off. That much we do know. And there was a bunch of shortcomings and fallings, and it was all law enforcement. I can't believe I'm about to say this. In this day and age is not what law enforcement was even 10 years ago, but certainly not what it was when my husband was in law enforcement. I keep saying back in the day. It was back in the day when you went out there, boots on the ground, you did your fucking job, you didn't harass people, and then you went home. All this, every time you turn around, it's officer safety, fear for my life, and that, please stop. Law enforcement, they have a tough job. Law enforcement's job is as tough as they fucking make it. It doesn't have to be that tough. Well, people are always mean to them. Okay, well, get some thick skin, because if you are in law enforcement and you think for 1 minute that everybody's going to be nice to you, then you need to go, I don't know, dig some ditches where you can be mostly by yourself. But yeah, let me know what you think about this one in the comments. I know this one's running long. It's going to be close to a half hour. Also, again, 90% of people that watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. Click the button. You are sitting right in front of your computer. I know you can see that button right there. You got your phone in your hand, even on the TV. You just flip the little to the right, and you can click it. I'm just saying. And let me know what you think about this one. And I'm out.